it is time to bring in our guest for today. She is Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat writer of Cleveland.com, Browns analyst for our very own WKYC, the 2025 Bill Nunn Jr. Award winner. Mary Kay Cabot joins the Ultimate 216 show. First and foremost, before we talk about anything football, congratulations to you. This is just such a prestige honor. I read up on this award. I believe you are the second person in Cleveland sports media history to win this award, the second woman to win this award. How does this make you feel? What's your thoughts? How happy are you right now?
I'm very, very happy about this. Over the past couple of days, I've really been thinking back over my entire career and just everything I've been through, including all the way back to covering Bill Belichick and that whole regime back then when I covered Nick Saban and Bill Belichick. And I remember times when Eric Mangini, he was a public relations intern for a while. And, we used to say, oh, hey, Eric, do you have those transcripts done yet? Or we need some more soda in the refrigerator here. So there are so many funny memories, so many stories, so many ups and downs, so many emotions. But I must say that the thing that I am most proud of throughout all of these years is the fact that, at least I hope, I have blazed a trail for women in the business. And I've seen so many great women enter this business over the last how many ever years. And there were almost none, obviously, when I first started. And now it's tremendous to see this, not just in the media, but inside the buildings of NFL teams. And I think that's just fabulous.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So let's talk about the Cleveland quarterbacks. Of course, you were there for the only day that was open to the media for OTAs. And we read a lot about how the reps were split up. Shedeur Sanders did not get any of the 11 on 11 reps. Do you think that is a part of the plan to kind of keep most of his reps, like team reps and things like that, behind the scenes, away from the media, to kind of keep the spectacle a little controlled as they can for when they can?
No, I don't think that's it. I think right now they have a pecking order. And at the moment, he really is number 4 on the imaginary depth chart. And the number 4 quarterback doesn't necessarily get those choice reps, but I think they're going to divide it up by day. So there might be days perhaps when somebody else won't get some of those 11 on 11 reps. Again, we were only out there for one of the 3 days this week. And so we're not really sure what happened on the other 2 days. But I think on that particular day that it showed that as of right now, I think that Shedeur is number 4 on that depth chart, and that he's going to have to work his way up and leapfrog the others if he wants that starting job.
Mary Kay, when you look at the whole quarterback competition, Flacco, Pickett, Shedeur, and Dillon Gabriel, I think you had logged in as we were finishing what we said before we brought you in, that I'm just hoping it's an honest quarterback competition. If Pickett's the best of the 4, then I hope Pickett's the week 1 starter. If it's a rookie, Shedeur or Gabriel, if he outplays Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, he's the week 1 starter. Do you see any world where a rookie could be the Browns' week 1 starter? Or do you think the built-in familiarity that Joe Flacco has with this offense, or the fact they traded a pick to get Kenny Pickett, kind of gives them the inside track to be the week 1 starter, even if they get outplayed throughout camp?
Well, I think it's very, very hard for a rookie to step right in and to read those defenses and understand what they're trying to do to you, and to get acclimated and to play on the road and to play in noise and all that kind of stuff. So I just have a feeling that it's going to be a veteran starting in week 1. Plus, the Browns have such a grueling beginning to the schedule. It starts out with 2 AFC North games, and then it goes into 3 NFC North playoff teams. And by week 4, they embark on a stretch of 5 out of 6 on the road. I can't even believe it when I say it. 5 out of 6 on the road. That's going to be so tough. They want to come out of that still relevant, still in the hunt. They have to be able to do that. So in order to do that, I think that they've got to go with a player that has experience. Now, it will be a fair competition, but I just think in the end, someone who has been through, the NFL fire before is probably going to be in the driver's seat on opening day.
So Let's talk about Dawand Jones. He showed up in shape, looking good, took all of the, first team reps at left tackle. How much noise is he making behind the scenes as he continues to ramp himself up to compete for that starting job this season?
Well, Dawand is actually one of my favorites. I really like him a lot. I got to know him a little bit when I did some stories on him when he was a rookie, and he's just got a really cool personality. I hope that Browns fans really get to see more of him and get to know him better over the years, because he's just a really, really great guy. So I know he's excited about this opportunity. He looks good. He did a great job with his weight during this offseason. He did not blow up. He did not gain weight. He looks to me like he has lost weight. I don't know what the weight is right now, but that's important when you're trying to operate on, legs that you've broken a leg in there and you've had knee issues and things like that. So I think it's important for him to stay fit and in shape. And he moved really well when we saw him Wednesday at OTAs. So I think that's exciting for him, and he should be able to nail down this left tackle job.
I know it's just OTA clips, and we can't look anything too much into clips and videos that the Browns are posting, but Jerry Jeudy was mic'd up, and it was cool to get a little 4-minute insight into how now a veteran is meshing with some of the younger guys and the coaches as the Browns try to reestablish their new offensive identity. Mary Kay, we know Jerry had a breakout season last year in his first year with Cleveland. Do you think he's poised to add on to that again now in 2025?
I think so. I think that he's well suited to this scheme, to this system, to this football team. They believe in him. And when you have a football team that believes in you, it has a tendency to bring out the best in a player. Now, of course, he's going to have to make sure that someone can get him the ball, or the Browns are going to have to make sure that they can get him the ball early and often. And I think that that's going to be a large determining factor in the quarterback competition. If you're out there making Jerry Jeudy look great, and you're making David Njoku look great, and Cedric Tillman look great, then that's going to go a long way towards you winning this job, because that's the name of the game. They've got to get in that end zone. They've got to move that ball. They've got to score the football. They need more than 15.2 points per game, which was last in the NFL. So if you can demonstrate that you are making these guys look like Pro Bowlers and superstars, that is the key to the Browns' heart, I think.
Just to stay on that same wavelength, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman looks like a baller. Outside of those two guys, is there anybody else in that wide receiver room that you anticipate stepping up, and being a key contributor this upcoming season?
Well, one player that I was very intrigued to see on Wednesday, and he happened to not be there, was Dawand Johnson. He's a Pro Bowler, and he runs amazing routes. And this is kind of his last chance to prove that he belongs here in the NFL, because so many teams gave up on him last year. So he needs to get there whenever he can. I don't know why he wasn't there on Wednesday. Maybe he had a great reason. We don't know. But if he can be there, he should be there, because he has a lot to prove to the Browns, to himself, to everybody in the NFL, that he is still that Pro Bowl player that played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if he can get out there and do some of those same kinds of things, maybe he can fill that key role of being that other sort of Pro Bowl caliber receiver that the Browns really, really need. So I'm hoping that we get a chance to see him soon.
Speaking of guys who weren't there, Mary Kay, I know it was blown up and probably made a bigger deal than it was that Myles Garrett wasn't at OTAs on Wednesday. He was in Tokyo with I believe it's his girlfriend. She was getting an award for some anime ceremony or something like that, but he was not obviously at OTAs, Mary Kay. And normally it doesn't bother me, or shouldn't be a big deal if a veteran skips OTAs, but I remembered, and then I went and found your article after talking to Jimmy Haslam at the owners' meetings about the Browns kind of challenging Myles to become a bit more of a leader. Were you surprised that he wasn't there after Jimmy kind of asked him to take that leadership step this year?
I actually thought maybe he would show up for OTAs this year after getting the big contract, and after what Jimmy Haslam told a small group of us at the NFL annual meeting. And I put a headline on that because I thought that was very significant when he said we are challenging him to step up as a leader for this football team. So I thought maybe he would be there. But by the same token, these are voluntary. Nobody is allowed to hold it against anybody. And these are more sort of passing camp oriented, and you don't have as much to do for the big men. You don't have the whole offense, defensive line, all that much. There are 11 on 11s, but it's a little bit more 7-on-7 driven. So I don't even know if the Browns are too worried about him being here. I mean, he shows up ready to go and in shape. And I will say this about a player of Myles Garrett's caliber. I don't care what anybody says. There is a bit of a different set of rules for a superstar generational talent like him.
It's funny because that was going to be my next question. So I'll add on to it. I do believe it's different strokes for different folks. And I was going to ask you, do you believe that we tend to overreact to guys and veterans not being present? David Njoku wasn't there. Joe Bitonio wasn't there. Greg Newsome wasn't there. But it's funny because I did a show yesterday and I felt just like you. I thought Dawand Jones missed our opportunity to change the narrative of the rumors that's been behind his character, the type of person that he is, a me first player, not a team guy, and to be stepping into a new city, a new organization, a new situation. I just thought that was a prime opportunity to kind of change that narrative. But just in the grand scheme of things, do you think us sometimes in the media and the fans, do we overreact a little too much to guys being absent at voluntary OTAs?
I think it sort of depends on the situation and the player. In the case of a Joel Bitonio, Joel needs to preserve his body. He came back to play football this year again in a year in which he contemplated retiring because he's got a lot of aches and pains. Once again, this is not a big man camp, these OTAs. So I have no problem whatsoever with Joel Bitonio not being here. He doesn't need those reps. He needs actually probably more rest at this time of year and more recovery at this time of year, which is what former Browns center J.C. Tretter is all about. He tells these guys don't show up at all for these OTAs. I don't necessarily agree with that because the teams that win generally have good attendance at OTAs. But I do think that in the case of a Joel Bitonio and some of these other guys, even a Jack Conklin, that they need to take that wear and tear off their body. And Myles probably is in that category to a certain extent. Now, Dawand Jones, once again, we have to give him the benefit of the doubt until we know exactly why he's not here. If he just doesn't feel like being here, then he's probably not helping himself per se. But maybe he has some reason. And I know because I saw photos of him that he was here earlier in the offseason program and maybe he showed up the next day. We just don't know the whole story when we are just dropping in once a week.
I wanted to ask about that, Mary Kay. How different has rookie minicamp and OTA? I know it's just been one OTA that you guys were at, but how different does it feel now that we have a 4-quarterback competition? There's so many rookies. It's just a constant change compared to any of the other OTAs, rookie minicamps you've covered in the past.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have not covered a quarterback competition like this in a long, long time. I really have to rack my brains and try to think of when I covered a quarterback competition like this. I mean, this is really on a whole nother level. It's really something else with 4 guys competing for this starting job. And I really think that they need to whittle that down as fast as possible and get their starters ready to play the season. That training camp goes really, really fast. And a lot of times there are guys injured and you can't get everybody out there. And before you know it, you're at the opener. So I don't think they can mess around with this too long. I think by the time they come out of mandatory minicamp, they should have a pretty good idea of maybe who the 2 main challengers are, and focus on those guys because you've got to get your timing down. You've got to get your chemistry down. And I just don't think that you can be going 4 ways too long.
I'll wrap it up with this. Just bringing it back to you winning this award. Over 30 years of Cleveland Browns coverage. You've seen so much. You've covered so much. So, a lot of good days, some bad days. Just jogging your memory back. What's the one moment in your career that for whatever reason stands out more than most to you?
Well, I would have to say it was the last game in Cleveland Browns Stadium just before they were about to move to Baltimore. That really stands out because it was such an emotional day. My beat was going away. The Cleveland Browns were going away. We had no idea when or if they were coming back. And it was just heartbreaking to stand in that stadium, to watch the fans sobbing and crying, and to watch players like Steve Everett, like not wanting to leave and embracing fans and people ripping seats out. And it just really showed the love affair, the absolute love affair that Browns fans have with this team. And it was really a surreal moment to watch all of that going on. And then, of course, the gratitude of them coming back.
Mary Kay, real quick, 'cause I didn't even think of this. What'd you cover for those 4 years when the Browns weren't in Cleveland?
Well, I'll tell you what, I always like to say I wasn't necessarily productive during those years, but I was reproductive during those years. I had my 3 children during those years, and I was able to take a lot of time off. So I did that. I took a whole year off with my son. I think I took probably another whole year off with my second child, a daughter. And then I took a lot of time off with my third daughter. So I got to bond with the kids, and they still like me to this day, which is kind of surprising, because then I had to jump back in to the beat, and somehow they forgave me for all of that. But yeah, I always laugh about that. But I did, I covered some of the whole business of the Browns coming back, and I did some other things too. But I mostly spent time being a mom.
Well, congrats to you, man. Once again, Mary Kay, like I said, I've been reading your work my whole life. Growing up in Northeast Ohio, city of Cleveland, loving the Cleveland Browns. I didn't have cable TV, so I always had what was in the newspaper, and I had what was on local TV. And it was just like your work always stood out to me. And I remember the first time I got to meet you when G. Bush was doing the pilot of the Barbershop podcast. And that was just a moment early on in my career that stood out. And you've been nothing but helpful to me, to Mike, to everybody at the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. So we just wanted to give you your flowers while we could, and tell you again, seriously, congratulations, because I know this means a lot to you.
Well, thank you guys so much. And I've really enjoyed watching your career blossom, Earl. So I've been happy to be a part of that from the inception. Really excited about that. And you guys have been terrific. So thank you so much for your kind words.
Thank you. That's Mary Kay Cabot. Mary Kay, we appreciate the time.
Take care, guys. Thanks a lot.